After 30 incredible years of marriage, a shocking revelation was discovered. You must come alone. Sarah held the letter, its edges crinkled from nervous fingers. The typed message felt like a betrayal in her hands, demanding her solitude in a rustic cabin just outside Maplewood. A long-standing family feud, secrets that could unravel everything she thought she knew. Her heart raced at the implications. 30 decades of marriage, built on bonds of trust and love, could be mere threads waiting to fray. What could possibly be hidden in her past? A wave of nausea washed over her as her mind wrestled with layers of doubt. She thought of Bill, his warm smile and reassuring presence, the very foundation of their shared lives. Could she bear to bring him into this storm? Protecting him, safeguarding their family meant everything to her. But what if the truth was more significant than the lie they lived? The irony gnawed at her. For years she taught her students about integrity and honesty, yet here she stood contemplating hiding a truth that threatened to change who she was at her core. Would silence shield him from pain? Or would it condemn them to a future replete with unseen cracks? Sarah's chest tightened as whispers from neighbors echoed in her mind, a neighborhood she had grown to love, now a breeding ground for speculative gossip she could almost hear behind her. Betrayal hung in the air, palpable and suffocating. But as big as her fears loomed, there was a flicker of curiosity. What lay behind the veil of her ancestry? The fleeting idea of greatness, rooted deeply in a lineage that had burned bright yet remained buried all this time, beckoned her. Would it bring shame or honor? The local library had always been her sanctum, a safe space rife with knowledge, so she sought out Mrs. Thompson for guidance. Every afternoon felt like creeping futility as they combed through dusty records, revealing shards of injustice and resentment connected to her family. Each revelation sharpened her anxieties as a haunting realization settled in. What if this hidden past could elevate her family's reputation but would sever long-held ties? The prospect of inheritance hung heavy as she struggled with the morality of exhuming old grievances while contemplating whether a change in fortune could seal further rifts instead of healing. And just when Sarah felt ready to sift through the muddy waters of her lineage, the phone rang. An anonymous call left a chill that crawled down her spine. "I know what you're uncovering. Keep it quiet, or the truth will come crashing down on you and your family." The threat struck her like a lightning bolt, igniting a firestorm of conflict within. Could she sacrifice everything she held dear to confront this shadow? Could justice breathe life into her dreams or raise them to ashes? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The walls of her familiar world began to close in on her. The double-edged sword of knowledge weighed heavier with each passing moment. Finally, standing at a precipice of fear and indignation, she felt the suffocating urgency pulse through her veins. Sarah knew the truth existed. If she took the leap, it would cost her everything or free her like never before. As darkness cloaked Maplewood, enveloping her in uncertainty, she stepped towards her destiny with trembling resolve, unaware of the tempest waiting to unfold. The cabin loomed in the distance, its worn exterior blending with the encroaching shadows of dusk. Each step towards it felt like a pilgrimage into the unknown, a confrontation with ghosts she had long believed were buried. Sarah's mind darted through the possible scenarios that awaited her, revelations that could either liberate her or devastate her family. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles turning white as doubt coiled in her stomach. Once she parked, the silence enveloped her like a thick fog. The unmistakable scent of pine combined with the earthy dampness of the fallen leaves drew her back into simpler times, a bittersweet reminder of the life she built with Bill, far removed from this unsettling uncertainty. As she opened the cabin door, creaking like the pages of a forgotten book, she stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the fading light, casting eerie shapes across the room. It was here that her past awaited her. Sarah approached a rustic table where a faded family portrait lay propped against a stack of old newspapers. The faces stared back at her, frozen in time, each smile hiding a story. The urge to piece together this puzzle intensified. She needed clarity. She had spent her career leading others towards their truths, yet now she stood on the precipice of her own obscurity. Without much time to linger, she thrust herself into searching the drawers, flipping through brittle letters and yellowed documents. Each one felt like a Pandora's box. The brittle paper crumbled under her fingers, revealing the heart-wrenching tales of love, loss, and betrayal that intertwined her family tree. She had spent so long avoiding the discomfort of her lineage, and now it demanded her attention. Just as she began tracing the connections, a noise broke her concentration, a crunch of footsteps outside. Panic surged. Was someone following her, or was it a mere figment of her imagination? As she peered through the cabin window, a dark silhouette moved past the window too, large to be just a passerby. Anxiety prickled at the back of her mind. She couldn't escape the feeling that she was no longer alone in this journey. Taking a deep breath, she pulled out her phone, contemplating whether to call Bill, but fear of his worry kept her from dialing. Would sharing her fears make them real? Could revealing the truth lead him to a pain she wished to shield him from? The irony twisted in her gut. The more she sought to protect her family, the more vulnerable she felt. The weight of her decision pressed down on her, threatening to crush the flimsy resolve she had mustered. Then, as if nature itself conspired against her, a sudden gust of wind shook the cabin, rattling the windows. It felt like an omen. Heart racing, she turned back to the scattered papers, drawing strength from her determination to uncover the truth. But as she read, a name leapt from the pages, one she had never heard before, echoing through her mind like a siren's call. What if this stranger had untold ties to her story? Picking up the phone again, she hesitated, but thoughts of what lay ahead propelled her. The phantom threat lurked outside, invisible yet menacing. She needed answers and clarity. The time had come to face, she thought fiercely, not just her heritage, but the very fabric of her identity. As resolve fueled her spirit, shadows flickered across the room, and the door creaked open. A figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the vibrant dusk. Her breath caught as she faced whoever had come to confront her. Would they reveal the truth she had long sought, or be yet another specter from her past, intent on tearing apart the life she had built? The moment of reckoning had arrived, and with it the realization that some secrets refused to stay buried. The figure paused just inside the cabin doorway, backlit by the fading light. Sarah squinted, her heart pounding in her ears as the silhouette coalesced into something recognizably human. It was a woman, older but striking, with a familiar yet foreign intensity in her gaze. Whatever courage Sarah had summoned began to waver, replaced by a hesitation that threatened to paralyze her. "Who are you?" Sarah managed, her voice barely above a whisper, laced with a cocktail of apprehension and defiance. "I'm here because I had to be," the woman replied, stepping further into the room. The light caught the hints of silver in her hair and the wisdom etched in deep lines on her face. "I'm Eva." The name struck Sarah like an icy calm, as if she were navigating uncharted waters filled with jagged rocks. She had anticipated that secrets might await her, but never imagined they would materialize in such an arresting way. "Why now?" Sarah's voice broke slightly, refusing to mask the tremor of her uncertainty. "Because the past doesn't stay buried. It keeps clawing its way back to the surface until you acknowledge it," Ava said, her eyes glimmering with a blend of empathy and urgency. In that moment, Sarah felt stripped bare, her carefully constructed armor shedding away. As Sarah searched for composure, her mind erupted with questions. Who was Ava? What could she possibly want from her? She focused on the woman before her, grounding herself against the tide of turbulent thoughts. "You knew my family?" Sarah pressed, trying to dismantle the wall of secrecy that enveloped this stranger. "Yes, but it's more complicated than that. You have a lineage that extends beyond what you understand, and it's critical you hear it all," Ava said, her tone shifting from cryptic to earnest. A sense of gravity filled the space between them. Sarah felt like she stood at the edge of a precipice, confronted with the choice of diving into the abyss or retreating into the safety of ignorance. Some part of her screamed to break away, to leave this cabin behind. Yet beneath that instinctual fright, an insatiable curiosity brewed. This encounter might hold the key to her family's mysteries. "Then tell me," Sarah demanded, steeling herself against the emotional maelstrom that hovered just beneath her surface. Ava took a deep breath, as if summoning every ounce of courage before revealing a truth that could rewrite Sarah's understanding of herself. You can't truly understand your past unless you know the whole story. There's someone you must meet. Tension crackled in the air. Every word was heavy with significance. Why must she meet this unknown person? What revelation lay ahead that could potentially dismantle the life she had painstakingly built? In that moment, the external darkness seemed to seep into the cabin. Glancing out the window again, the silhouette loomed at the edge of the trees, casting shadows that threatened to engulf her. The corporeal fear morphed into something deeper, rooted in the very fabric of her identity. "What do you mean, someone I must meet?" she asked, her voice faltering but packed with urgency. "That stranger's name is tied to your inheritance," Ava replied, stepping closer, her voice a mere whisper now, yet resonating with the weight of her declaration. "This truth could either bind your family together or rip you all apart. You need to choose whether to embrace this identity or allow it to haunt you." Sarah's thoughts spiraled as she fought to process the gravity of the revelation. Here she was, facing the nexus of her past, future, and identity in a single breath, incapable of predicting the ramifications, yet drawn irresistibly towards them. "Will you come with me, Sarah?" Ava asked, extending her hand. Sarah stared down at it for a moment, her heart wrestling against the tide of fear and curiosity. The moment soon morphed into a profound internal conflict,
forcing her to confront her own desire for truth, no matter how precarious it felt.
The shadows in the cabin seemed to deepen, reflecting the storm brewing within her. What lay ahead could either shatter her world or form a new foundation, but one thing was clear: the choice was no longer hers alone to make. "And if I say yes?" she breathed, realizing the enormity of the decision beckoning her forward. Then a low, rumbling voice echoed from the shadows outside, thrusting uncertainty back into the forefront. "Better make it quick, Sarah. Time is running out." Her breath hitched as tension collided with fate, teetering on the knife edge of an unfolding destiny. The gravity of Ava's words clenched around Sarah's throat like an iron band, choking back her instinct to flee into the safety of uncertainty. She found herself caught in a liminal space, one foot in her familiar life and the other on the precipice of a truth that threatened everything she had ever known. The shadows from outside stretched fingers of uncertainty across the wooden floor, a reminder that time was fleeting. "Time is running out," the voice echoed in her mind, mingling with the rhythmic pounding of her heart. Was it fear or a growing anticipation that stirred within her now? Stepping back, she caught Ava's penetrating gaze, a mirror reflecting her own unreconciled past. I don't even know what to expect," she stammered, grappling with her instincts. "That's precisely why you must go," Ava's voice held, a calm authority that somehow cut through the chaos swirling within Sarah. "Understanding your heritage means embracing the daunting unknown. You are defined not just by your choices, but the legacies you inherit." The tension coiled tighter. Sarah's ambition had always nudged her toward understanding and achievement, yet here she stood on the knife edge of the unexpected. What did she want? To hide or to confront the entanglement of her family's past? Each fraction of a moment felt elastic, stretched thin by the prospect of revelation. "What if I don't like what I find?" The thought gnawed at her. Could she reconcile the woman she had become with whatever truth lay waiting? "We cannot protect ourselves from what is uncomfortable," Ava replied, her voice steady. "But you have more strength than you give yourself credit for. Meeting this person may be the first step to understanding who you really are, or who you can become." Sarah absorbed the weight of Ava's words. A hidden strength? The concept flickered like a waning flame within her. The prospect swirled in her mind. Could confronting her family's secrets ultimately reveal hidden capabilities she never acknowledged? This moment could redefine everything she had spent a lifetime crafting. Before she could respond, the rumbling voice interrupted again, more impatient this time. "Sarah?" A surge of urgency propelled her forward. She took a long, deep breath, feeling the fear morph into determination. "I'll come with you." The decision unleashed a rush of adrenaline, mixing courage with vulnerability. Ava's smile broke through the tension, softening the edges of fear. "Then we must move quickly." As they stepped outside, the night enveloped them with an eerie silence. The air was thick, a strange blend of apprehension, urgency, and the thrill of anticipation. Shadows danced in the moonlight, suggesting the promises and perils that awaited her. Each step felt monumental, carrying a weight of its own. For Sarah, the darkness was no longer merely a backdrop. It was a part of the journey ahead, mingling with her unfolding identity. Walking beside Ava intensified her awareness. The night was alive with whispers of forgotten histories. From the corner of her eye, she caught vague outlines lurking in the distance, reminders that change often comes at a cost.
"Who is this person we're going to meet?" Sarah asked, her voice steadying as they approached an unseen destination. "Someone who understands what is at stake," Ava replied, the urgency in her tone thickening as they walked. "This meeting will require you to confront your deepest fears and perhaps unlock something within you." Sarah's pulse quickened. What did that mean for her? Confusion swirled with excitement as they reached a clearing, an ambivalence that danced in her mind. Was she ready to confront whatever darkness lay ahead? "Do you trust me?" Ava asked, pausing to meet Sarah's gaze. The palpable tension echoed with every unspoken truth between them, every fear yet to be faced. Taking a breath, Sarah nodded. "I'm ready." The air vibrated with possibility, and just as the moment solidified, a distant howl resonated through the trees, the kind that reverberated deep within. This new chapter was just beginning, and unbeknownst to her, destiny had more in store than Sarah could have anticipated. "What if it's all connected?" she thought, her mind racing towards the shadows that awaited her. The dark promise lingered as they moved deeper into the woods, into the heart of something she couldn't yet comprehend, facing the unknown, but with an unyielding determination blossoming within her. And as they reached the edge of the clearing, her heart thundered with a mix of dread and exhilaration. The figure awaited them, shrouded in an aura of mystery and revelation, a possibility that could ignite the hidden potential Sarah never knew she possessed. "Your truth is waiting," Ava said, her voice taut with anticipation as they approached the figure in the shadows. In that moment, Sarah understood the path ahead would test not only her resolve, but the very essence of her identity. This was no simple encounter. It was a crossroads where fear met destiny. But what awaited her on the other side of this encounter? Only time would tell. The figure gradually emerged from the shadows, and as the moonlight illuminated their features, a shock of recognition surged through Sarah. With a heartbeat painful in intensity, she realized she was staring at an older version of herself.
The peculiar, unwrinkled confidence in the stranger's eyes mirrored the latent potential raging inside her, an uncanny echo that both inspired and terrified Sarah. "Welcome, Sarah," the figure said smoothly, a calm emanating from their presence like a sturdy lighthouse in a tumultuous sea. "I've been waiting for you." How could this be? The woman appeared to be the embodiment of every dream Sarah had ever chased, a career filled with accolades, relationships tinged with understanding, and a life steeped in purpose. Yet the disparity in their lives was stark. How had she arrived at this moment while Sarah stood on the precipice of uncertainty? "Who are you?" Sarah's voice trembled slightly, betraying the confidence she struggled to maintain. "I am you, or rather, the version of you that could have been if you hadn't chosen to run from your fears." The older Sarah's eyes bored deep into hers, every word dripping with a gravity that demanded introspection. "You've buried your potential under a thick layer of doubt, but it's time to excavate it." A rush of warmth washed over her, though it clashed painfully with the icy grip of insecurity that bound her. She had always believed that fear was her enemy, a force to be conquered point by point in a battlefield. Yet here was a reflection of what she could achieve, a living testament that daunting truths could lead to empowerment. "What if the past is too painful to face?" Sarah questioned, dread mingling with desperation. "You carry the shame of choices made long ago, but each of those moments shaped your character. They are not chains, but stepping stones leading you toward your truth." The older Sarah's words fell like rain on parched earth, the potential of them crowding her mind, saturating her resolve. Could this be right? Was she really just one decision away from unearthing the power she had always felt slumbering beneath the surface? The specter of doubt flickered in her chest. This confrontation, despite its unnerving nature, was also a doorway. But how do I shift from fear to realization? She pressed, teeth clenched as she grappled with the turbulent cocktail of emotions. Embrace vulnerability, the elder responded, eyes flashing with an understanding deeper than any words could convey. You might feel insignificant, but remember, a flicker of light can break even the thickest darkness. You must be willing to accept both your past and your potential. With every fiber of her being, Sarah understood this was not merely an exchange of words, but an invitation to reimagine the narratives she had crafted about herself. What lay ahead required courage, a pact with the truth she had avoided for too long. Still, fear gnawed at her, leaving her feeling fragile and exposed. What if it overwhelms me? What if I cannot withstand it? Growth happens outside of comfort, echoed the older version, voice steady and fierce. Every fall has the potential to inform your rise. Clarity washed over Sarah as she stood at the brink of this exploration. Every heartbeat a drumbeat urging her forward. She felt the walls encasing her shatter as the potential of the meeting began to solidify. Then, she breathed, newfound determination intertwining with her vulnerability. Give me the tools I need to confront it. Show me the way. The deep connection between the two women transcended words, the pact forming in shared understanding, forcing both to grapple with the complex layers enveloping them. And just when the resolve surged strongest within Sarah, the figure stepped closer, casting a deeper shadow that obscured what lay beyond. The moment hung, tantalizingly poised on the cusp of revelation. And then, "Are you prepared for what you might find?" the older woman asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but dripping with portent. This question loomed larger than anything Sarah had faced thus far, enveloping her in a gripping tension. The answer required more than a simple acknowledgement. It demanded an unyielding push into the very depths of her being. But would she have the fortitude to go where her heart dared to lead her? As silence draped over the clearing, Sarah's imagination surged with questions lurking just beyond reach. This was no longer merely about heritage. It was about reclaiming herself, every fragmented part that had ever existed. The time to begin was now, but a single step into the unknown loomed dauntingly above her, like a chasm waiting to engulf her should she misstep. "Are you ready to confront your fears, Sarah?" The question echoed, reverberating deep as she drew a breath to respond. But just as the words began to form on her lips, her voice fell silent. What awaited her in that abyss of potential remained shrouded in mystery. A path not meant for the faint of heart, but for those brave enough to uncover the truth buried within. Would she take the plunge or flee back into the shadows? The night swirled with uncertainty as she stood suspended in possibility, feelings melding into a cocktail of anxiety and anticipation. How could she resolve the internal conflict while traversing a terrain fraught with uncharted fears? Each possibility hung faintly like a flame about to be snuffed out. What would Sarah discover next? Only the bravest step into darkness would guide her path. The air was heavy with an otherworldly silence, as if the forest itself held its breath, waiting for Sarah's response. Her heart pounded in her chest, a relentless reminder of the urgency inscribed in the moment. The concepts of fear and potential danced in her mind, colliding like waves against a cliff.
She had lived her life avoiding the depths of her own emotion, allowing doubt to masquerade as self-preservation. But confronting her own reflection, the reality of what she could become, was a pivotal juncture. She hesitated, grappling with the enormity of both the question and her answer. Every fiber of her being screamed for clarity, a spark of courage buried beneath layers of self-doubt. Yet this moment wasn't meant for hesitancy. It demanded resolution. The older Sarah's presence shimmered with a tangible energy, inviting but formidable. It was a mirror reflecting strength and tenacity, qualities Sarah had only glimpsed within her own soul. Would she emerge bold and driven, or remain tethered to the fear that had silenced her voice for so long? After what felt like an eternity, she met the piercing gaze that mirrored her own. "Yes, I'm ready," she finally uttered, the honesty in her tone reverberating through the quiet woods. With those words, the older version of Sarah smiled, a serene acceptance that felt like a warm embrace. "Then let us begin." The air crackled as she extended a hand, not merely inviting Sarah into an introspective journey, but compelling her to embrace the choices she had shied away from. As they stood together, the shadows deepened, and the forest around them began to shimmer like the surface of a vast ocean, reflecting countless pathways. Each glimmer represented a decision, a repercussion of choices made or avoided. The realization dawned upon Sarah that the exhilaration of possibility coexisted with the weight of her past, and only by walking this path could she reclaim her narrative. "Look closely. Each path leads to another facet of you," the older Sarah encouraged, her voice echoing like a soft wind through the trees. In that moment, Sarah focused her gaze, searching for fragments of her life lodged within the entwined branches and twinkling light. She spotted a path leading to an old journal, long forgotten, the pages filled with unfiltered reflections of dreams and ambitions she had cast aside. Another trail revealed the silhouettes of faces, a gallery of friendships that once lit her spirit before falling into shadows of resentment or neglect. As she scanned the myriad of pathways, an uncomfortable tension pooled in her stomach. Memories clamored for attention, demanding recognition of the neglected corners of her identity. Each spoke to a choice, a fracture in her past that needed mending. The ache of lost opportunities felt like a weight pressing against her chest. "Why does it feel so overwhelming?" she rasped, the slightest tremble betraying her confidence. "Because you've denied these parts of yourself for far too long," the older Sarah acknowledged gently. Confronting pain is often the first step towards embracing power. Each experience, however difficult, has something to teach you. Staring at the paths illuminated by a silver hue, Sarah felt the burgeoning mixture of dread and resolve swirl within her. Standing at the nexus of self-discovery, she was wholly aware that this was more than a solitary encounter. It embodied a pivotal chance to redefine every aspect of her life. "Which path should I take?" she questioned, the uncertainty thickening her voice. "Follow your intuition. It knows the way," the elder replied, eyes locked onto her with a fierce determination that ignited an ember of hope in Sarah's heart. Deciding with a newfound sense of steadiness, she took a tentative step toward the journal, recognizing it as a stepping stone laced with profound lessons. Just as she grasped the leather cover, a rush of emotion swept over her. Each word inscribed in the fading ink was a reminder of who she once aimed to be, clamoring for validation and respect. But as she opened it, flickering images poured forth, each demanding attention and leading her toward hidden desires and prickling regrets she had buried deep. The reflection of her past was harsh, a cacophony of laughter, heartbreak, triumph, and loss. Suddenly, from the darkness, a whisper echoed, unsettling her resolve. What if understanding your past only complicates what lies ahead? Sarah's heart raced again as she faced the whispers of self-doubt. Would acknowledging her history entangle her further in its web, or would it cut the invisible cords that limited her? All at once she recognized that power awaited her, but dared not step into the light without first addressing her shadows. Time coalesced around her as she considered the question anew, the weight of potential now surging through her veins. This destiny demanded confrontation of herself, her history, before she could embrace the future. With decisions rippling just beneath the surface, she felt the heartbeat of her purpose pulse stronger. The deeper question loomed. Would she brace herself to emerge transformed, or remain a spectator anchored by uncertainty? Sarah inhaled deeply, energy swirling within her as she prepared to confront the specter of regret. What awaited her in the pages of that journal was merely the beginning. Would she find clarity among the chaos, or would it reveal truths she wasn't prepared to unpack? As she opened the book, the first words beckoned brightly, yet ominously, ready to ignite her journey toward an undeniable truth. The first page of the journal felt like a binding spell, its coarse texture grounding her as the words leapt forth, vivid and unyielding. "Dear Sarah," it began, a familiar yet distant salutation that struck a chord deep within her. Instinctively she drew a shuddering breath, surrounded by the pulsating quiet of the forest, her reflections promise of courage, a thin veil over her rising trepidation. Those initial phrases spiraled her back to a time when dreams flowed freely, an era before doubt became a close companion. Each stroke of the pen seemed to reach out, inviting her into a space packed with vitality, a sanctuary where fears had yet to be lodged. A giddy sense of nostalgia intermingled with the weighty resistance of her contemporary self, forming an inner tug-of-war. "Remember the summer of '99, the words whispered, recounting a time filled with simple joys and reckless abandon. Sarah felt her heart warm at the sight of memories long buried. The journal's entries were spontaneous serenades celebrating her youthful ambitions, artistry, travel, authenticity. But alongside that warmth arose a sharp pang of longing, a desolate reminder of paths not traveled, a chasm left unbridged. Why did I sidestep my own aspirations? She questioned aloud, more a plea than an inquiry, feeling the older Sarah's presence beside her, silent yet profound, waiting for her to piece together the narrative. Because self-erasure felt safer, the older Sarah replied after a heartbeat, her voice an echo mingling with the rustling branches. You built walls instead of bridges, fearing that vulnerability might expose you to pain, but they also trapped the very essence of who you are. The words sank in, digging into grooves of truth. Accepting this reality stained her heart with a blend of dread and relief, intensifying the confrontations she so desperately needed. She couldn't ignore how easy it had been to weave a tapestry of avoidance, spinning stories that justified her choices, all the while letting parts of herself grow dim. Yet even amidst the encroaching shadows, overtones of resolve began to manifest. So what do I do now? Each word was tinged with newfound determination, the urgency of reclaiming her narrative bubbling to the surface. She scanned the pages, yearning for direction, for a roadmap that recognized life's complexities and her fragile aspirations. Start with honesty. Bear witness to each resonant moment that has shaped you, Otis advised, her steady gaze urging Sarah to venture deeper. Let it unfold as you peel back the layers, confronting the fears that built your walls. With that, Sarah took another breath, steadying herself for the expedition through her maze of memories. As she began to read aloud, each word shattered parts of her carefully constructed facade, allowing feelings of remorse to flow freely. They shaped themselves into specters, confronting her with visions of opportunities lost and love squandered. The first page ignited a fierce longing within her, a desire to reconnect with the visionary she once was, the one who believed in infinite possibilities. Her laughter and naive confidence felt like missing puzzle pieces scattered in the recesses of her mind. Here, in this forest, among these shadows, she imagined gathering those pieces, knitting them into the fabric of her life. Page after page turned, revealing portraits of dreams deferred. A chapter on a forgotten art exhibit whispered echoes of her aspirations, while another recounted friendships that had faltered under the strain of unspoken words. Each recollection was infused with tenderness and loss, yet they served as gateways, beckoning her to reclaim what she had let slip through her fingers. But as Sarah reached a passage detailing a deep, raw heartbreak, a familiar wave of fear crashed against her resolve. What if confronting all of this just magnifies my failures? She thought, hesitating as the emotional fog thickened around her. Each fracture can lead to empowerment, the older Sarah's voice cut through her uncertainty. Embrace the hurt. Understand that it does not define you. Instead, let it guide you toward your next steps. The reassuring weight of her guiding figure steadied Sarah's resolve. A flicker of courage ignited within, urging her once more to keep moving, to navigate through the haze that blurred her vision. With those words ringing in her ears, Sarah recommitted to her journey, flipping through myriad paths awaiting her exploration. It was more than a trek through forgotten narratives. It was a reclamation of power she never knew she possessed. As she absorbed the raw tales echoing through the journal, a new urgency pulsed through her veins. She felt poised on the precipice of transformation, her ambitions stirring with the bile of regret. Would she harness that energy, wield it like a sword in the battle against mediocrity, or let it dissipate into the oblivion of what could have been? Then a particular entry caught her eye. Scrawled in hurried handwriting, it spoke of a defining moment she had turned away from, a crossroads teeming with potential. The words felt electric, igniting a storm of emotions, as if the universe was imploring her to recognize that opportunity once more. "I can't go back," she murmured, grappling with the resurgence of doubt, yet knowing this was the moment to embrace the chaos and clarity that propelled her. Emboldened, she faced the offering of her past with the fiery essence of determination. What lay beyond this revelation began to swirl before her, leaving a residue of possibilities bright with tension. As she absorbed the energy of each page, the whispers of her soul demanded something more. The echoes of her heartbeat quickened, charting a new course. What have I left unchallenged, and what will I confront next?
The questions loomed vigorously, settling into the empty spaces of her heart as she steadied herself for the revelations destined to unfold. In that moment, she understood. The next step wasn't merely to confront her past, but to transform it into an invitation for radical change, an evolution toward the self she had long desired to reclaim. And as she turned the page, the words gripped her with fatalistic expectation. To rise, you must first decide to fly. The ink flowed freely as Sarah focused on the page, her thoughts racing like a river bursting through a dam. Each stroke of the pen was a battle cry, a manifesto of her intent to reclaim the life she once envisioned. But the shadows from her past lingered, whispering doubt and caution. "What if I make it worse?" she questioned, brushing a stray tear from her cheek. But the resolve kindled within her. She understood that vulnerability wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a gateway to strength and authenticity, the very essence of who she was.
The stories that spilled forth from the depths of her past were neither mistakes nor failures. They were lessons waiting to be integrated into her identity. "Do I dare to explore the parts I buried?" she contemplated, letting her vulnerability guide her. She consciously chose to navigate through painful memories, the lost art dreams, fractured relationships, and the deep well of heartache. With the journal on her lap, she visualized facing each chapter as though it were a whispered secret. Each revelation became a stepping stone toward her liberation. With renewed determination, Sarah reopened that chapter about the defining moment she had hesitated to embrace. The opportunity to study abroad, she recalled, her heart racing. How many nights had she laid awake longing for that adventure, yet staying paralyzed by fear? "The scholarship," she spoke aloud, the words resonating like a thunderclap in the quiet of the forest. "Why didn't I pursue it?" "Because you feared being alone in a foreign place," the older Sarah's voice floated through her mind, now more familiar. "But loneliness isn't your enemy. It often reveals who you truly are." Each word she wrote was infused with a heavy blend of regret and awakening, unveiling a hidden resolve. Sarah allowed emotion to unfurl, crafting sentences that spoke not just of her past, but of the self now emerging, a self that would no longer shy away from discomfort. "What do I need to learn from this, and how will it shape my future ambitions?" As the pages turned, so did her heart. Each narrative forced Sarah to confront pieces of herself she had long neglected. A voice echoed in her mind, urging her to unpack the weight she carried, despite the stark fear that lodged deep within her chest. With every realization, her sense of agency awakened, sparking a bright flame against the dark backdrop of trepidation. Yet with every ounce of courage came a haunting fear. The fear of judgment, the fear of failure, the fear that this unfolding might lead to nothing more than further disillusionment. "Whose expectations am I living under?" she questioned, grappling with the gnawing sensation of dissatisfaction that surrounded her life choices. "Yours," came the whisper from within, "and they are the most profound." Emboldened, Sarah began to pen an entry that defined her current state, acknowledging both the scars and growth that had shaped her. She articulated her fears, her losses, but also the compelling truth that her journey was not closed. It was wide open, filled with potential and promise. She needed to act, to confront, to embrace the thunder of life that lay ahead. What if stepping into the unknown was her greatest ally? What if grappling with failure could birth resilience?
These thoughts flooded her with a new urgency, the skeptical voice of doubt dwindling.
As her hand glided over the final lines, Sarah vividly proclaimed her intent for the future, a resolve to chase that scholarship, to broaden her horizons, to take steps toward creative reinvention. It's time. I must step forward, even if it feels like jumping into the abyss. With those words, empowerment surged through her veins. Yet a new doubt crept in. Had she truly earned the courage to face the unknown? What if pursuing her dreams endangered the fragile construct of her current life? And still she pressed on, the ink drying like the promise of dawn after a long night. The forest around her settled into silence, reflecting the internal storm she was ready to embrace. As she turned the page in the journal with decisive intent, those final words echoed in her mind. To rise, you must first decide to fly. But with newfound determination came a mounting anxiety. Could she truly find the wings to soar, or would she succumb to the gravity of her fears? In that moment of decision, the path ahead glimmered with both hope and uncertainty, drawing her inexorably toward the next pivotal choice. What awaited her on the other side of this resolution? The question loomed heavy as she embraced the uncertainty that lay ahead. The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor, while Sarah sat cross-legged on the ground, her journal resting on her knees. The rustling leaves mirrored the turmoil churning within her mind. The decision she faced was not simply about a scholarship. It was an invitation to redefine her very existence, to confront the shadowy figures of regret and fear that seemed poised to sabotage her every step. With a deep breath, she clicked the pen and jotted down her aspirations for the future. Study abroad, she wrote, underlining it emphatically. Yet as the powerful ink formed each letter, a chilling realization gripped her. This wasn't merely an academic pursuit, it was a declaration of independence. Assessment ensued. What if she failed? What if her dreams were beyond her reach? Each what if emerged like a specter, taunting her resolve, laying her insecurities bare. But beneath the fear lay determination, coiling tightly in her chest, urging her to act. What if this fear was a reflection of something deeper, a lifelong pattern of holding back, of succumbing to expectations? The shadows that used to loom large now felt smaller under the light of her introspection. She was not a prisoner of past decisions. She was an architect of her future. The ink poured forth, a catalyst for possibility. Soon after, Sarah felt the urge to go beyond words. Her fingers itched to pick up the phone, to connect with someone who could help her navigate this new terrain. Harsha, a mentor from her college days, sprang to mind. They had stayed in touch, their conversations always rich with insight. But could she muster the courage to admit her fears to him?
Doubts nagged at her. What if he judged her aspirations as frivolous? What's more frivolous, not pursuing your dreams? She challenged herself, the internal dialogue now a motivating force, pushing against the walls of her own self-doubt. Sarah dialed the number, each digit trembling under her fingertips. The line rang, and she felt a moment of panic before she was greeted by the familiar voice on the other end. "Sarah, it's been a while. What's going on?" Harsha sounded genuinely thrilled, and that spark of warmth enveloped her, easing her hesitation. Taking a steadying breath, Sarah decided to share her aspirations. "I've been considering applying for that scholarship to study abroad, but I'm terrified." "How so?" Harsha asked, encouraging her to unpack her feelings. The words cascaded out, her fears about feeling inadequate, the weight of judgment, her long-held belief that perhaps she wasn't meant to pursue grand ventures. As she spoke, she observed a shift in her own language. Her voice trembled less, and clarity emerged through the chaos. Harsha listened, occasionally chiming in with reflections that illuminated her thoughts. You know, Sarah, growth often feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, he said, his tone grave yet reassuring. The leap is terrifying, but the view from above, stunning, liberating. You have to trust that you're capable of soaring. After hanging up, Sarah felt buoyant. A new realization dawned upon her. A sense of clarity washed over her, illuminating the path she intended to follow. This conversation was more than a mere check-in. It was a turning point, cementing her intention to take actionable steps towards her dreams. But doubt re-entered the scene. What if she couldn't sustain this momentum? What if the harsh realities of life pushed her back into complacency? Sarah acknowledged these fears, writing in her journal, "Navigating through the abyss is not just about courage, it's about persistence." She documented a plan: research schools, prepare applications, reach out to alumni for advice. The gears of goal setting clicked into place, the boldness within her gathering like a storm. As she closed her journal, Sarah felt a surge of empowerment. But the complexity of her choices loomed ever larger, pressing down on her with the weight of their potential impact. What awaited her as she took this leap? Could she truly embrace the freedom that accompanied such a radical shift? Or would she allow the gravity of doubt to pull her back? The forest seemed to hum with life around her, echoing her internal battle as she prepared for this new chapter. How far was she willing to go, and at what cost? The questions hung heavy in the air, waiting for her to find the answers. The time had come to confront the first step of the journey, an encounter that would either launch her into the unknown or entrap her in the safety of her fears. What awaited her in the world that beckoned just beyond the horizon?
In the weeks that followed, Sarah transformed her uncertainty into action with determination. She embraced the heartfelt vows she penned in her journal, mobilizing her dreams into concrete goals. The scholarship application became her focus, a litmus test of her aspirations, a key to unlocking the potential she always believed resided within her. Each requirement she tackled became a personal victory, a testament to her growth. Researching schools, reaching out to alumni, and crafting her application required a blend of meticulousness and creativity. Each day brought challenges, but where once fear lurked, now excitement bubbled. She meticulously articulated her ambitions, the ink flowing freely as she outlined her vision for the future. Memories of lost dreams faded, each step toward new horizons reaffirming her belief in herself. As the submission deadline approached, Sarah sought feedback from former professors and mentors. Drawing on the connections she had spent years nurturing, she shared her essay. Their encouragement deepened her resolve and helped her refine the final piece. Each email exchanged, every suggestion became a thread in the fabric of her journey, pulling her closer to a tapestry of success. The day she pressed send on her application, a physical weight lifted. It was more than an application, it was a declaration. Sarah had stepped beyond her fears, embracing vulnerability. This bold move was her metaphorical plunge, an affirmation of her agency to sculpt her story. Yet, as she allowed herself moments of joy, doubt crept in again. Could she truly succeed? Would the scholarship committee see what she saw in herself? Her thoughts wandered back to Bill, the unwavering supporter who was now her anchor. She realized how much she needed his encouragement throughout this transformative journey, rather than ceding the narrative to fear. Gathering her courage, she opened up to him like never before. Over dinner, she expressed her fears, dreams, and the opportunity looming ahead. Bill listened intently, pride evident in his eyes, as he encouraged her to leap fervently into the adventure awaiting her. His belief stood firm, reinforcing Sarah's newfound confidence as they designed a future perfect for both. Finally, the day arrived when she received notification of the scholarship outcome. The envelope, gleaming under morning light, felt like a promise wrapped in uncertainty. The moment she tore into it, her heart raced, her palms slick with anticipation. As she read the words aloud, tears streamed down her face. She had been awarded the scholarship. Disbelief intertwined with elation, setting a whirlwind of emotions into motion. The world beyond her doorstep suddenly seemed full of potential, a place where adventure and learning awaited. Internal metamorphosis was complete. Her earlier fears had become mere whispers compared to the harmonious symphony of pride resonating through her heart.
Earning this scholarship was validation. Her courage had prevailed, igniting transformation into a more profound sense of personal identity. With the acceptance letter proudly displayed on her wall, she ventured forward, fueled by renewed purpose. The complexity of her choices felt less daunting. Instead, they represented the intricate patterns of her evolving life. Embracing her heritage, her dreams, and her growth reshaped her identity, laying the foundation for a bold new chapter. As she prepared for this new endeavor, she recognized the journey had only just begun. Gone were the burdens of doubt and regret. What remained was an unwavering confidence, standing firm on an established foundation of achievement. This resolution rippled through her, inducing a profound trust in her capabilities. Sarah stood in front of the mirror and saw not just a woman cloaked in uncertainty, but a vivid reflection of determination and possibility. She had come so far from the shadows that once marred her vision. And as she closed her journal for the last time, she acknowledged that a life scripted under the weight of doubt would remain no more. Her truth awaited eagerly on horizons yet to be explored. This moment was hers to savor, the culmination of inner resolve and wholehearted acceptance blooming brightly as she embarked on this new chapter. More than just pursuing a scholarship now, she had conquered her innermost fears and emerged radiant, a living testament to human growth and resilience. She left the cabin that echoed with her past memories, stepping boldly into the light of possibility, committed to growing ever further beyond her horizons. Now, if you resonated with this powerful journey of transformation, you need to subscribe now to the channel. This is the moment to show your support for these exclusive emotional stories. Please leave a like right this instant as it fuels the algorithm to bring you more stories of personal triumph. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Take action. Your support matters. Embrace your journey.